To call to order the regularly scheduled meeting for the Apex Town Council, December 4th, 2018. And at this time, I'd like to ask you to bow your heads with me for invocation. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to live in a free country, to serve our fellow man. We pray that we will seek your wisdom and guidance in everything we do, and that we will remember whom we serve. We thank you for those who fight for us, for our freedom, for those who have done so in the past and sacrificed. We pray your comfort, your peace on them and their families. And we pray now that as we turn to you for guidance and we sit to do the will of the people, Lord, that we will keep everyone in mind and the compassion that we have for our fellow man. We pray all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I enter the time of presentations, but just as we're about to do that, I'd like to remind you that our agenda is printed on the podium outside, so if you missed one, it looks like this, stapled papers. Feel free to go grab one. Also, if you intend to speak at public forum or public hearing tonight, you needed to grab this piece of paper from the podium and also sign the appropriate sheet depending on whether you're speaking at public forum or the public hearing. With that, I'll now move to presentation number 1, and I'll recognize our Fire Chief, Keith Miggy, for an introduction.
Good evening. I'm excited to be here tonight to present to you our new Assistant Chief, Preston Clark. Preston comes to us from the city of South Fulton in Georgia, just around the Atlanta area. We did a nationwide search. We had several applicants from as far away as North Dakota. We had Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina. I forgot, a bunch of different states were represented. During the process, Preston separated himself throughout the process. Not only did his prior education experience and the culmination of all of his efforts over the years, it showed he demonstrated an extreme level of professionalism. He started with us a couple weeks ago, and so he's working. This is the beginning of his third week or in the middle of his third week. His head's still a little bit swimming, I think, from all the things to take in, but many of you have had a chance to meet him. I hope you get the chance. You'll see him again, and I hope you get the chance to interact with him. But Preston, welcome.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you here. As I witnessed firsthand, he was able to be there Friday night for some of our events downtown, Christmas tree lighting, Christmas on Salem, and Saturday again for the parade in the rain, which will not be stopped. We will parade. We will have fun. This is Apex, by gum. And he was able to see a little bit of what I called Apexicana. So I'm glad you got a chance to be there for that, and I hope you continue to embrace it and become one of us. We now move to presentation number 2, and I turn to our town attorney, Laurie Hoey.
Mayor and council members, I'm pleased to introduce to you tonight our new assistant town attorney, Chris Welch. Chris, if you'll stand up just a moment. Chris has been with us for about 2.5 months. He's a graduate of the University of North Carolina School of Law. He also obtained his undergraduate degree from UNC, studied public policy and geography. He was also an intern at the town of Cary during his 3rd year of law school last year. So we're feeding him with a fire hose, so to speak, Chief.
Nice.
And he's learning a lot, and we're really happy to have him here with us.
Very good. Welcome. So we're glad to have you aboard, Chris. If I speak for the council for a moment, we actually hope that we don't need too much attorney help, but we always do, and when we need it, we're glad we got it. So thank you very much. The third presentation item here is for an Arbor Day declaration. So if Department Head John Brown could come forward. This is the Arbor Day presentation, and I'll go ahead and read that as you're coming up. Whereas in 1872, Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday is called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees, And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of the business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas the Apex Town Council and the Tree Citizen Advisory Panel will commemorate Arbor Day by planting a tree at Salem Pond Park on December 12th, in case you want to be there. Now, therefore, I, Lance Olive, the mayor of Town of Apex, do hereby proclaim December 12th, 2018 as Arbor Day in the Town of Apex, and urge all citizens to celebrate our Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And at this time, I'll sign this and turn this over to John Brown. I'll come give that to you. And there you go, John. And just as he's about to say something related to trees and parks, I'm sure, just wanted to let everybody know this is the third year I think we've been doing this now consecutively. We plant a tree every year about this time, and we do enjoy making sure that we have an identification of place. It's not just random, it's somewhere we've identified as a good need place. And then we typically will sign it so that we know what it is, why we planted it, so that it creates a history and a legacy of what we've been doing, so that 20 years from now people can look and say, look how big this tree is now, remember when it was planted. So, John?
Yeah, the only thing I would say, Mayor, is all you know, we just had the tree canopy study done, and certainly as part of that, and there were a lot of citizens and a lot of departments, a lot of people involved in that. There were a lot of places and a lot of effort went into identifying where we could replace trees or improve the tree canopy to protect trees with all the development that's going on in Apex. So this certainly will be part of that. And from a park perspective, we hear all the time about the need for more shade and more trees, and so we found a really good spot and look forward to planting it on the 12th.
Great, thank you very much. And as he's returning to his seat, I'll turn to the town manager just to make sure that the event itself can be published on social media from the town of Apex so that people will know and anybody can attend.
Absolutely will be.
All right, very good, thank you. Oh, and I guess I could also add, it is also now 2 years we've been Tree City USA, which is a certification. We've checked all the right boxes, we've done all the right things, we have the right boards in place and procedures, and we hope to continue doing that for years to come. At this time, I'll now move to consent agenda. This is a time where we review items that are typically non-controversial, and we enact them with a single motion. If any councilman wishes to pull something for later discussion, they certainly may do so. So at this time, I'll ask, is there an item that would like to be pulled, or if there is a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to pull consent 16 to discuss later.
All right. If there's no objection, we'll target that one for new business number 2. All right, I don't hear an objection, so we'll do consent agenda 16 as new business number 2. Any other items, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve with consent 16 removed.
All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda minus number 16 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that passes, and our consent agenda is now passed. We now set our regular agenda in addition to the new business item number 2. The town attorney has asked that we have a second item to discuss as part of our closed session, which would be negotiating positions for property. Other than that, I know of nothing else. Mr. Town Manager?
Nothing else.
Okay, all right. Is there a motion to approve that agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, we've now set our agenda. We move to public forum. This is a time you get to speak to us. If you have any item that you wish to talk to us about that is Apex relevant, we invite you to come forward. At this time, the town clerk is bringing me the sign-up sheet. I see somebody coming forward, so as you do, just remember we use the 3-minute rule, which is the green light, yellow light, red light system, and the town clerk will start that. As you begin, please state your name and address for the record, You have the floor, sir.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Walter
Manthe.
Manthe. All right, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council, folks, thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. Yeah, my name is Wally Manthe. My wife Beatrice and I have lived at 1000 Chimney Hill Drive since June 1st, 1992. Love Shepherd's Vineyard, and we have several, probably I think 15 folks here from Chimney Hill section tonight in support of what I want to share. It's really going to be, you've got the handouts, everybody?
Is
You
it
have the
this one?
handouts?
The STIP project?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
If you will follow along without getting ahead, that would be great.
Okay, before you start, Mr. Manthe, just 1 second. Who here does Mr. Manthe speak for? All right, very good. If it please the clerk, we'll do 9 minutes. I mean, you don't need all of it. If you don't need all of it, that's fine, but
I need more, but that's okay.
9 it is.
All righty, thank you, appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
This is concerning the 64 improvement project, but is zeroed in, focused on the Lake Pine Drive and Shepherd's Vineyard Drive solely. And if you are familiar with the concepts 2A and 2B that DOT has put forth, I want to present a concept 3 tonight that I think is far superior, and I want to make that case on why it is. If you'll go to page 3, I welcome you to review all of the other things, but page 3 in the middle, you will see dramatic improvement to north-south flow of motorized traffic. That is one of the major objectives of the project. Both concepts 2 and 3 will accomplish that, and the identical details on how they'll do that is by replacing that stoplight at 64 with an overpass so that Lake Pine Drive no longer has to stop while 64 goes. Huge improvement to the flow of north-south traffic. Huge. The next one, 50% increase in north-south lanes, from 1 to 2 lanes in each direction. Again, huge. You put those two together, it is a 1-2 punch that effectively reaches the objective for that north-south flow of traffic. The third objective here, and I'm ignoring the first one, but the third one, dramatic improvement to north-south connectivity for non-motorized traffic, walking and biking. This is the feedback that I got from DOT as well as the town of Apex, Russell Dalton, Bob Deaton. This is a concern, Shannon Cox. This is a concern that the non-motorized traffic, both 2 and 3, will resolve that by adding a pedestrian or bike path either over or under. Either one will give it unprecedented improvement. There's never been a cross path at Shepherd's Vineyard, a pedestrian cross. Never been one at Lake Pine. There's one down at Laura Duncan. This will be unprecedented improvement to that non-motorized traffic. Page 4 is a map that you will probably recognize. This is the concept 2A and 2B that was presented by DOT at the June 21st public open house. 2 things to note there. On the right is the Lake Pine overpass. On the left is the Shepherd's Vineyard underpass with the tunnel. Note how much yellow is between Pine Plaza Drive and Lake Pine Drive. Lots of yellow, lots of construction, lots of disruption, lots of expense. Next page, page 5. This is concept 3. This is what I believe is by far the best option. For whatever reason, it was not presented by DOT. You'll notice this is a hybrid. On the left, concept 1, that cut and paste that covers the Shepherd's Vineyard section, very little yellow. Concept 2A and 2B on the right, identical for both concept 2 and 3. That's not the relevant part, but I do want to say that when I went to the open house, this is the 9-page color document that was handed out. Not once did they show in here the no tunnel option. In the concept 1, 2A, and 2.3, they only have the no tunnel option on concept 1. But what they did was they teamed up no tunnel with what they call the contra flow, which I call the convoluted flow, the over-complex flow. It's the least attractive thing in the whole project. And they put the no tunnel option with that. Now, I don't know why they did that. You have 4 different combinations of these 2 intersections, and they only used 2 of them in the 3 concepts they had. And they stuck this no tunnel option with the least attractive of them and gave the 2 that then they say has been popular Because I've talked to DOT a number of times. I've talked to the folks here in town of Apex, and it just seems like, well, it's picking up traction for that tunnel. Well, when you go to no tunnel and it goes with that contraflow, well, no wonder no one wants it. So I wonder about the transparency on that. I believe the public needs to see this option that was not presented by DOT. Next page, page 6. Differing details on concept 2 and 3. Attention to the red. On concept 2, excavating a tunnel underneath that amounts to under more than 8 lanes of traffic. 3 lanes each way, an off-ramp, an on-ramp, plus the median, plus the shoulder. It's a long tunnel. Concept 3 is relying purely on what is already going to bring that objective into play, which is the 50% more laneage and the stoplight being gone. Concerning the connectivity on the non-motorized traffic, and this again is what I've had given to me as the major concern for everybody. I share that same concern. I believe people who are walking and riding ought to have free course, free path. Concept 2 does it with a path, a 4-foot path alongside the tunnel. And the car path underneath the tunnel, I was given, that are now going to be 11 feet wide rather than the standard 12 feet wide. So there's already going to be a compromise on the width of the lanes, and then the walking path will only be 4 foot wide. The path that could be done in Concept 3 would go right alongside the west side of Lake Pine, which is going to be identical to what they're talking about doing at Laura Duncan. Laura Duncan is where the 2,282 students at Apex are going to be tracking across, and they say that instead, since they can't do the pedestrian bridgeway, they're going to do a robust, this is Bob Deaton's words, robust path, 10 foot wide. We could do a robust 10 foot wide path on the west side of Lake Pine that would go right on up Lake Pine, head on up, give everybody connectivity to the bus stop, to the shopping area, and take it, why don't we take it 3/10 of a mile up to the jewel of our park system, the Apex Community Park, to a place where oftentimes there aren't enough parking spaces, the overflow. So we could bring that up, people could ride their bikes, walk, it could be a beautiful thing. At any rate, next page, last page. These are serious concerns I have. I'm going to not go over each one of them. I welcome you to, but I want to draw your attention to the second one. And there are 3 places where there's going to be major safety risk involved with the tunnel portion of the project. The third one there, increased risk at the entrance exit of Eva Perry Regional Library. I was told by the library personnel they get 1,000 visitors per day, 7 days a week. A lot of people coming and going there. You put that tunnel there, and there's going to be a retaining wall on each side of that entrance and exit. That is a blind corner. That is almost a double blind corner. That is a nightmare. You can turn that dream entrance, if there were no tunnel there, it is a dream entrance and exit out of Eva Perry Library for all those 1,000 visitors a day. You do that retaining wall, it's going to turn into a nightmare. It will put a mother at risk with children in the back over and over, because that's a lot of the traffic that they get at the library. The third one I'll skip. The fourth one, major sacrifice in quality of life. I love Shepherd's Vineyard. You can talk to any real estate agent who brings people into our neighborhood. That entrance is precious. People note that the old growth of trees when you come into Shepherd's Vineyard. Just about everybody I talked to on Saturday, they love that. DOT said that they will scrape all of the trees, talking about the arbor, love trees, from Chimney Hill Drive north will be all stripped out. That old growth, over 40 trees of old growth, will be replaced with a slow descent into a long tunnel with concrete retaining walls on both sides. I don't get it. I mean, that's a piece of Shepherd's Vineyard's DNA. It's like amputating it. Number 6, fiscal responsibility. I couldn't get anybody to quantify how much that tunnel is going to cost. DOT said it will cost an exorbitant amount of money. That's the most I could get. I've been told it'll be over $20 million, upwards of $30 million. Why not take some of that money, put a wall in front of the full length of Knollwood, 10 foot tall, $1.3 million. take some more of that money and put a beautiful median, vegetated medium, the full length of the project that's fitting of the #1 place to live in the country.
Thank you, Mr. Manthe.
Thank you.
Obviously, this is a lot of information, and none of us are traffic experts. We do appreciate the sentiment and the concerns. If it's all right with the council, maybe we can work with the town manager. Maybe we can get a readout back from our traffic engineer to look at it, and also to evaluate our perspective on this as a town, how the DOT might implement them, whether or not this is an option or not an option for the DOT to consider. You know, is it too late? I don't know. I think there are some questions maybe we could get answered for us as a council.
Absolutely.
All right, thank
Glad
you.
to do it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I was told by the DOT that it is still an option.
Thank you. We'll find out. Thank you. All right, that closes public forum at this time. We now move on. We go into public hearings. Public hearing number 1. This is a public hearing for receiving citizen input regarding the formulation of the fiscal year 2019-2020. Yes, it is that early. It is December 2018, and our budget is due to be signed off in 6.5, maybe 7 months, right?
It'll be done well before that.
Yes, thanks. But in terms of council vote, we will be voting on it. We like to start early here in Apex because we find that the earlier we start, the more things we can find and trim and refine until we get it just right. And so, as we know, Sean really wants to get it just right. So we're going to make sure Mr. Purvis is empowered by starting early. At this time, I looked at the public hearing sign up. I see no one has signed up. So we will open and close the public hearing for the budget hearing, but that doesn't mean that you've missed it because we will have a few more.
And it is worth noting that there is the annual budget, annual.budget at apexnc.org is our budget input email address, and that is monitored by our budget analyst, Amanda Grogan.
Great.
And
Okay.
just a reminder, is that the emails that go to that? Did we get a readout of like
Yes,
a
sir.
summary of those?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you say that website again?
It's an email address, so it's and off the top of my head, it's annual.budget at apexnc.org.
It's an email address.
It is an email address, accessible via our website, which is apexnc.org, and then budget.
All right. So now we move on to old business. There is none. Unfinished business. There is none. We go to new business number 1. Public Art Committee Chair Tom Colwell is going to talk to us about some considerations.
Mayor, all of council, thank you very much for letting me speak to you about public art one more time. I greatly appreciate it. What I'm here to speak to you about today is a call for artists. So there's 2 projects that we want to move forward with an RFP for a call for artists. These are projects that were approved in the budget last year by this council. Thank you very much for that support. The 2 projects are a mural in downtown and a sculpture in downtown that goes along with an art or a photography program we're calling Apex Spot. So the mural is intended to be on the side of the fire station that faces the depot and the parking space there. And you have some information in your package that was kind of a pre-read on the call for artists and shows the location. The other one is a sculpture that goes along with this photography program we're calling Apex Spot. And the idea there is to be very interactive with the community and locate some spots around town that are attractive, that we might think that people would take photographs of, and to encourage that. This sculpture will be a life-size frame type sculpture that can be, people can take their photograph, and in the background would be either the depot or downtown or some other angle in downtown Apex. So again, to kind of drive public interest, and then also to have some kind of interactive and attractive artwork in downtown. So the 2 things I'm asking for today is, one is the approval of the location of both of those. So again, the locations are at the side of the fire station, and the location for the sculpture is in the grassy area near the sidewalk in front of the depot. And then the other is to permission to proceed with the call for artists. At this time, I'll just open it for questions.
All right, before we take it to the council, let me just ask a real quick question, Town Manager. Are you aware of any conflicts from the town's perspective with the two locations? In other words, do you have an intentional purpose for any of these two spaces already?
Well, the council has in your budget this year funding for the program design, if you will, the renovation of Fire Station 1. At this time, I don't know how extensive that renovation will be, and that was the caution that was given to this location. Is certainly don't want to put a mural on something that may get altered during the renovation. Can't promise that it won't get altered. Can't promise that it will. Don't know at this point what the architect will come back with, or is there a potential that we need to change the face, the appearance of that brick on that side of the building? Does the brick need to get repointed? All that kind of stuff. So from just an operational point of view, maybe a little premature to think about putting permanent art on something that may only be in place for only a year or two before we actually do the construction work.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'll open it to the council for questions or comments.
When is the renovation scheduled for that?
It'll be the following fiscal year, so we should be programming that into your next budget, yes.
And so, yeah, we talked about this, but I forgot what you said earlier today, which is kind of bad. But the timeline of the design for that, so you want a design in place for the budget we do for next time, know how much to spend.
Correct.
And so if you, at some point there'll be a design that will know that can somehow hopefully coordinate with this if there's no need for renovations.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
And what was your timing on?
Yeah, and we were hoping to kind of run these a bit in parallel, get in front of the call for artists so we can get an idea on the concept and to ensure that the funding is appropriate that we have. Okay. But we can adjust we want to do what's right and don't want to certainly put something in place that could be either damaged or have to be covered or something like that. So we want to of course work with the team.
So a call for artists, that kind of thing will not, there can be a timeline listed in the call that kind of would try to.
Yes, and we can delay the release of the call to be more in line with this as well. We've looked at other options because we knew of this and certainly we've had conversations about it. And we looked for other options in town and the reality is they're all have one hurdle or another. The Haley was one, and that's with the historic nature of that building seemed to be something that was going to take many, many years, quite honestly, to get through. We might eventually attack that one, but not quite ready for that. And we would be open to other recommendations or suggestions if someone had an idea of where this might go. But the other option is to just simply wait a few months and then release it at the right time in parallel with the work that's going on there.
How about the side of, what is that, Common Grounds, that brick wall, the side there? Don't they have something that says like more shops?
They do, yeah. Just being the fact that it's not a publicly owned building, we kind of wanted to shy away from that. Not that that might not be something that we, perhaps, the council would approve, but we've also heard that there's potential renovation and addition to be added to that as well. So, but we looked at that and at this time thought maybe the firehouse would be better.
So from the submission that we have, it says the committee is looking for approval regarding the first location in front of the depot. So is that all the ask is for tonight? Is the one location in front of the depot? For the sculpture. It was.
It's two separate.
Yeah, it was two separate. There's two separate calls, for the different projects. So the sculpture is the other one, and that's in front of the depot in the grassy area near the sidewalk.
Okay.
So that, if we choose to, talk about that one, that would be the other one that we could. I don't see anything that would hinder moving forward with that right now.
And is that, we're done?
Yeah, I saw that. I was just,
Oh,
I was reading.
Was
this
that one
part here.
so it's permanently in the ground?
Well,
Can't be
it'll go on a base.
Okay.
And so it will be permanently affixed, but being that it's not really going to be that large, that certainly could be moved. So if there was something well in the future where we had to, we chose to do a plaza or something else in that area and do some other work, it absolutely could be moved. And it wouldn't, and we could put it someplace else in
Well,
town.
the base would be there. You're saying the base would be there permanently? Or is it?
Yes, but we're talking about a kind of a 5x5, concrete, small concrete base, easily removed
Okay, okay.
if needed. Yeah.
What is the sculpture typically made out of?
Well, that can be again. There can be a lot of different options, but being that it needs to withstand elements, it'll most likely be steel or some type of metal.
So Mr. Havens, I think, was trying to say something.
Yeah, if I may. So as a suggestion to the council, if you like the idea of a mural, I hate to go back to the mural, but that's in my head and I'm old and it'll go away. If you like the idea of a mural on the side of the firehouse and you say, great, but let's not do it until after the construction is done, we can actually take the funding that's been appropriated for that in this fiscal year and put it into the project fund for the construction project, so it doesn't get lost. So the funding doesn't go away at the end of this fiscal year if it's not, the actual money isn't spent, just as a suggestion. And then as far as the sculpture, if you approve the concept of the location in front of the depot, subject to coordination with planning and others to be sure that that's an acceptable location on that property from a planning perspective.
Okay. We
Site distance and
have
such.
talked to planning, and they have okayed the location. Now, of course, it would have to be details.
Depending on what it is, right?
Very much
Yeah.
details to work out, but they are in support.
Thank you, sir.
So is there a motion to, I guess, provide conditional approvals for these two locations, remembering that there's a process to this, that there's some staff considerations they're going to have to make sure they connect in, but in terms of general locations and enough to the point where we can call for a statue and a mural. Is there a motion for that?
Before we do that, can I ask one other question real quick? If that's all
Yeah.
right. So the process is let's say we give approvals. The process, you call for artists, they come back and present, several of them present some kind of idea.
Correct.
And a cost to that.
Yes.
And then you guys on the committee will kind of pick the one you think was the best, and then we'll go for it?
And no, we'll come back here. And we'd also like to have representation, if you would like, from someone from the council on the selection committee. So our intent is to have members of the public art team, not necessarily everyone, but members from there, a member from planning, one from the community, and one from this board, if you would be interested. If you want to pass and allow that committee to do that, then that's fine too. But then we'll come back with our recommendation.
Okay.
So I'm ready to make a motion that we approve this as presented to us for both locations, concepts. I like the fact that how you're working with staff, and I also like your inclusivity of who's on the committee to sort of look at this and make sure it's the right fit for us. So that's my motion.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion and a second to approve.
Is there an understanding that there will be a delay in your motion, that there will be delay in implementation of the mural?
Potential delay.
Yeah, because here we're just talking about the location and the call, and staff have already indicated that they are well aware of. Yeah, so I don't think we have to include it in our motion.
Okay.
Town manager is saying he's aware, so,
Right.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no?
No.
Okay, that passes 4-1. And just as I sometimes do, if you have a comment on your no vote, do you have one?
No, I
Okay.
think I've addressed public art enough.
All right, thanks. All right, thank you, Mr. Colwell.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, this time we go to new business number 2, which was new off of consent agenda number 16. Audrey Killingsworth, our council member, has pulled that, so I'll give you the floor.
Sure. I pulled this consent agenda item not because I don't want to approve these people, but because of the problem it presents. As it stands now with the UDO and ordinances, if I have a problem with the nominees, I have to pull it, and we speak in this forum about concerns that we have about one or more people. I don't feel like this forum is an appropriate place to first hear concerns about people nominated to these boards and committees. I would like to recommend that we vote on whether or not these nominees go through, which I would like to see that they do. But I also recommend the following, that we direct staff to make changes to the ordinances and the UDO to create an appointment committee made up of the mayor and 2 other council members of the mayor's choosing to review all people interested in the board and committee positions through the interview or resume process, or however the committee chooses, before they're placed on the agenda for the council to approve.
All right, comments?
The change to the UDO, do we want to have that discussed in a committee first? Is that what the objective is, or are you suggesting that we change it right now?
I'm suggesting that we direct staff to make the changes to the UDO and come back to us with that recommendation.
All right, so we would vote first on the recommendation of the mayor.
Correct.
For this slate, and because the mayor recommends, the council appoints, and then the second step is to direct staff to amend the policies so that there's a committee of the mayor and council members that's representative, and then they decide how. And then we come here and everyone's been informed of the process of everyone who is being considered, or
correct. Just like we do with the finance committee or the planning committee, it's presented before multiple council members and kind of vetted through the process there before being brought to the council with that recommendation. So,
okay.
Is it just for, I guess, is the intent to just have a more thorough vetting process for the appointment?
pretty much. And it's that if a concern comes up, that this is not the first time that we hear about it when it's on the consent agenda. That process is basically vets those issues beforehand, so that we don't call out individual members or individual nominees if we do have a problem with those nominees.
In this form, because if we have a committee, it's still all public record, but it's just
Correct.
a little bit more intimate setting. Is that
correct? And I'm envisioning a fairly thorough process, and the mayor's may be aware that it's going to probably take more time to do this.
Yeah, my concern, obviously, and this is not, I'm not trying to be precious about it or anything for me, but I know it takes a lot of effort. I know that one person can get kind of a job done pretty quickly, pretty thoroughly. When there's a committee involved, it is going to take a lot of time. There can be 15 to 20 people. And just a reminder, when I took office, the process was whoever the mayor knew and said, do you want to be on a committee, got recommended. And that was the process. And there was no real process of resumes. There was no process of anything. And one of the first things I did is I went, in fact, even maybe before the town manager was even interim town manager, is I asked for us to put on our website a form that people can fill out to express interest, because I wanted to have people who are very interested in helping their town, who also have the opportunity to say, here's my background, in a little more free form, right? It's not a job interview. It is a volunteer thing. And if my concern is, if you make it too formal, where somebody has to write up a resume and all that, I think you might stifle some participation. I could be wrong. But by opening that up, my intent was to be transparent, to not make it a networking of just who you know, but anybody who expresses an interest and seems to have some qualifications that would be appropriate or express significant enough interest in their community can do that. Now, it does take time to go through that process. If we try to do that from a committee standpoint, I fear we will probably end up spending many hours, and this is a yearly process, actually 2 or 3 times a year, depending on which committee needs how many people. There also is not currently a deadline, so once someone has expressed interest, they're in the, for lack of a better term, database. So whenever I need to say who has expressed interest, it's everybody who has, since we pretty much have the form. Now, that may change in 6 years when, people start rolling out, moving out, whatever. I get where you're going with that, and I appreciate where you're coming from. I'm certainly going to abide if the council wants to do it. I have no problem following the council's guidance if that's what you want to do, if you want to change the ordinance. And perhaps this is a way to create much more openness. I do know that we all, as council members, have to have jobs in our day jobs, so we don't have time to do a lot else. So just be cautious that if you go down that road, it's going to take a little while to go through that process. As you know, I've been very fair, I think, in my selections. I think I could stand behind all of my selections and say I've tried to create a diverse selection of people. That may or may not have always been the case. With that said, though, if I could take a little facilitation order here. I heard you say that you wanted to go ahead and do the slate.
Yes.
So what if we get that kind of out of the way, and then we can kind of finish talking about the process? Is that all right? Okay. So if it's all right with you, okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve your nominations for the boards and the Planning Committee, the Board of Adjustment, and the Parks and Rec Committee. Those are the 3 that were on there. Is that
Okay,
right?
Great, thank you.
Planning board, right? Not committee.
It's Planning Board, yeah, Advisory Commission, and Board of Adjustments.
Yes.
And Parks and Rec.
I'll second that one.
Advisory Commission, yeah. Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the nominations? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, thank you very much. Those people are now appointed. Mr. Town Manager, you can follow up with the appropriate people and get those people plugged in. From a planning perspective, and Sarah, it looks like you're covering for Diane a little bit tonight. So my thought towards planning generally, so Drew, Sean, etc. We got several new people. We've also got 2 people who have been there less than 2 years. It wouldn't be a bad time for kind of a 101 just to get everybody back to level, because I know when I served on the planning board, it took me probably 2 really good years to feel like I had a groove. And planning is a lot of effort, and there's a lot of terms, a lot of understanding. Mr. Roach out here, he probably, is glad whenever he comes up and he's got years of experience of presenting to the council, because he's very aware of what it takes to be on the planning board. But we have a lot of new people, a lot of new faces, a lot of empty chairs changing around. Hopefully y'all can find time to do that as a planning department and maybe kind of give them a primer, even if it seems beneath some of them. I think it wouldn't hurt. We want, and maybe if I could take one more moment, we want the planning board to be helpful and functional. And maybe this is a very broad statement, but it's been said to me that they worry that our council doesn't listen to the planning board. That when the planning board comes and makes a recommendation or a disrecommendation, that we don't seem to be that interested in whatever came from them because we already have our mind made up. I'm not saying that's always true, but that's what's been told to me. I'm hoping that the planning board can repair that, can get to a point where they're asking some of the hard questions, that if some things are inappropriate, that we say no. And if that is for whatever reason, if it by right, or if there is a reason for that, then they understand that there's an obligation and maybe even a legal reason why something is or is not approved. So I'd like for the planning board to become more functional, so that we have a planning board that when people go and present their plan to, they don't feel like they're just there for a dry run and it doesn't really matter what the outcome is. I want them to present and put their best foot forward, so that the outcome from the planning board comes to the council and it's well considered by all. Does that sound reasonable?
Not only that, but also having those dissenting voices there, the diversity of thought and being that, if everybody is there with the same mind and it all comes with a 5-0 decision every time or whatever
Right.
it is, then it's harder to listen to that when we get that every time.
Right.
But when we have dissenting voices, I want to know what that dissent is. I want to know what their concerns are. So I like to hear those.
I agree, and I think there have been times where we've asked, hey, those two people that voted no, what did they say? Right, so our expectation as a council, if I can speak for everybody, is that we want planning to tell us what that was. So when there are 2 no votes, we want them to make note at the time that happens, so that when we ask the question, we get a good answer.
So, yeah, I wanted to piggyback on some things that Ms. Killingsworth said. So related to diversity of thought, we think about, in my day job as a manager, we're told if you're in a hurry, you do things in a hurry, you may not do them in the best way. And so sometimes trying to make sure that we honor diversity, equity, all the way to inclusion, that the way to do that, to do it better, it may take longer. So, but then you get a better result because you're really intentional. And so when you do that, then you often get people who present different geography, perspective, thought, race, ethnicity, gender. And so I think by doing it, taking a little bit longer, then you won't grab your friends, it's like whoever's close by, you come on, let's run, we got to do this. But taking that into doing this, making appointments like this can kind of bring more people in who may have expertise or may not, may have interest, but if they're saying, we're going to really think about this as more of a broader council thing, there might be people who feel the way you said, that, oh, well, they just are doing like the other mayor did. They may not even know that you're doing it differently, but now they'll know. So that's being more open. Also, with the planning board, I would like to know, I've been on this council since 2013. I'm just finding out today that the planning board thinks that I don't take them serious. So, I think we should have a joint meeting with the planning board as we did.
Well, to be clear,
yeah,
I didn't say the planning board doesn't think that.
Oh, okay. I'm glad I asked that. I thought
Yes,
that's what you
sorry.
said. I thought that's what
you
said.
Not the planning board. I think I may have said people, but
You said planning board, I think.
I heard people, but go ahead.
Okay, my intention was not.
Lay it back.
Let me be clear. Well, let me be clear. Whatever the words I said, let me be clear since we have the opportunity. I didn't mean to imply the planning board thinks that we don't consider their input. That those others out there, not the planning board, but for example, citizens, developers, home builders, just anyone who has presented anything to the planning board, and then the issue comes to council, they have expressed to me that they feel like we don't listen to the planning board's outcome very well. I don't know of anyone in the planning board who has said that to me. So if that's how it sounded, that was not what I meant to say. Sorry, I apologize for the confusion.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I agree with Nicole's comments.
Okay. Well, certainly, it is council decision to decide what to do with ordinance, how appointments are made or recommended for boards. So I'll let you guys decide if you want to direct staff to review some changes. Now's the time to discuss
Mayor,
that.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've done a very thorough and fair job appointing to the various boards and putting boards in place. That's one of your responsibilities as a mayor, is to do that, right? One of our responsibilities is to vote on the projects that come before us. And I don't know, I feel like you've been very open, and you've in the past have asked us for recommendations. Do you know somebody? And then have them fill out the process. They have to fill out the application if they're interested. I don't want to drag. I agree with the intent of what you're trying to do, but I don't know if we should drag the process out much more or try to take something away from the mayor's responsibilities and make it that much longer to appoint people. I don't know if it's.
And to your concerns, my understanding is that one of the boards is having difficulty meeting quorum. because they have some members who are not showing up, who are not as committed, or don't want to continue serving in that form. So, I mean, I think this process may more thoroughly vet those people who may not be as committed as others.
Or maybe is it something where we look at like, okay, if you're serving on this board, we expect like 90% attendance or 95% attendance. Maybe it's not.
Well, there is actually attendance rules.
Is there?
Yes, there are, and to that point,
Are we
if
enforcing
there, well, we should be,
But
but if, to that point, I have heard that anecdotally, but I don't know of a chronic attendance problem by any individual. So, with that said, the one request that I know that we did to help was to provide a second alternate to the Board of Adjustment. Now that that position is filled as of 10 minutes ago, that will help provide an additional person to that board. That board, to be honest, meets less frequently than the other two boards.
Right.
They typically have a very short agenda, if any. Now, that may pick up as the amount of construction, especially in commercial projects, start to pick up. That may pick up, but we've got every seat filled, and to my knowledge, there's not an attendance, a single person who has a chronic attendance problem. It could have been seasonal.
Is
related
there
to
also a
summer.
way, to your point, is there a way that if they're serving on those boards, they can express their desire to not serve on that board anymore? And
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah, they certainly can. Any individual can express the desire to leave.
right.
And when that happens, we'll try to fill it immediately. Yeah.
Because I absolutely agree with you. I mean, if somebody doesn't want to be there or they're not enthusiastic about it, then.
But to be clear, I don't think there's a existing pervasive problem. I think we had a short season where there was a difficulty with the quorum. I think it was because adjustment board is 5, not 8, like on planning board or Parks and Rec, which is 9. So it's easier to get a quorum when you have a larger group of people. So now with Board of Adjustment with 2 alternates, they should have a better time getting a quorum. And they also, like I said, they also meet less often. I mean, I don't know for sure, but it may have only been 5 meetings last year. 4? 2 meetings in a whole year. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to call that a pattern, even if it happened 2 out of 2. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess my point is if that's the concern or the issue, maybe we look at tightening up that enforcement of those as opposed to taking the appointment responsibility away from you and going through a committee and trying. That was.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just to be clear, my motion is not to exclude the mayor from that appointment. He is going to be, in my motion, that's what I want to make clear, is to make sure the mayor is a part of that committee. So it's not to exclude him from that.
Right. The policy says the mayor recommends the council appoints. So it is a joint decision in a way, in a sense.
It is.
So it's not being taken away, but it sort of gets a little bit to your goal sometime, Mr. Mayor, when you talk about hoping that, and it can't happen all the time, but hoping that in committees that you would like to see where people agree on committees and bring something forth. I mean, this is sort of consistent with that also. You can have some discussion in there, and the people may kind of get some of their thoughts out there, and you may have more of that at that point versus coming here and feeling a certain way. And
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I don't think you'll ever be able to convince me that this is a good idea, but if you, as a council, decide to do it, I will more than happily follow whatever the ordinance says that we do. And part of the reason why, and I get it, there's opportunity for someone to maybe take advantage of the system or put you in an awkward position. And I've been in your chair, literally. I was in that chair for 4 years. And
and I have been too.
yeah, and I didn't know the person, but I was glad to have at least a little brief 1-paragraph summary of who the person was. And I know when I went through the process myself, I mean, in 2003, I sat right there on the front row as a nervous citizen who was about to be appointed to a planning board, and I had written a 1-paragraph summary that the council members all had given to them. But you know, I get where you're coming from. If that's how the council wants to proceed, that's, you know, it's your choice. It's your decision.
Well, I would like to make a motion. It's okay?
Sure.
To make a change to the ordinances going forward related to the appointments of members of the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, tree advisory committees, and similar committees, and changes to the UDO related to the nominations of appointments of members to the Planning Board and Board of Adjustments to be referred to an appointment committee comprised of the mayor and 2 other council members whom the mayor appoints to make a decision to determine who to recommend to the council for approval.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion on that?
I just want to say, go ahead.
No.
Okay. I am not in support of this. I think that the process as is right now, I think is a good one as far as the nomination. The voters put their trust in the 5 of us to make decisions, but they also put their trust in the mayor to decide these things as well, have good judgment. So I don't really intend to change that policy. If I did have a critique, it would be that we don't have a lot of information about these people sometimes when we're appointing them after your nomination. And I think having them come up, I mean, I'm not sure they all want to, that'd be a good idea, but having them kind of tell a little bit about themselves, I think would be helpful for the next time.
With that comment, I would be more than happy to make sure that happens for every nomination going forward, if that's what the council wishes.
That'd be my preference.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I'm not sure that if we, you know, if we'll hear something bad, we may say no. Then maybe that's the case. I'm not sure, but at least seeing a face and hearing a little bit about them, their background and where they live, maybe, and their family would be good. So that'd be my critique. But as far as the process goes, I think people put their trust in you, and you've been open about the process, and I think that's been a good thing.
Thank you.
Well, I'm satisfied with the appointments. I thought the appointments were fine this round. I earlier thought a committee is the right way to go. I still kind of think a hybrid committee is the right way to go, where the mayor and 2 council members sit down and vet these together, but the mayor still can make the appointment, but the council still has to approve it. So I've kind of backed off a little bit from where I was in terms of having this as the committee that makes the decision, to having this committee as a vetting committee to assist the mayor in understanding each of the candidates.
And that's what this is.
That's
That's
what
what
it
the
is.
nomination is.
Okay, but the mayor makes the nomination still.
He makes
Is
the
that what you're saying?
recommendation. Yeah, it's the same.
Well, I think if 2,
I thought the committee was making the nominations.
isn't the majority of the committee would be the one to make the nomination according to your?
Should I restate the motion?
Yeah, maybe you
Yes,
need to restate.
please do.
Yeah, no, that's not. It's not changing his. It's just
Yeah,
about having the
I
committee.
thought I didn't think it was going to, but I thought what I heard was kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, it's referred to an appointment committee comprised of the mayor and 2 other council members whom the mayor appoints to make a decision to determine who to approve to recommend to the council for approval.
Okay, so the mayor still has the power to make the,
Absolutely.
So
you're shaking your head no.
Is that right? Or is it the
Yeah.
committee's making the recommendation?
The committee, the 3 together sit down and talk about the people.
All the
that
people that the mayor nominates to the committee to
Correct.
consider.
But
That's
it's
right.
still
But
on
the
him.
mayor makes.
So-
It's still on him. Mhm.
So am I making,
Yeah.
in that scenario,
Advisors.
would the mayor make a recommendation to the committee first?
That was the plan. That's the
So it's still,
idea.
so the difference would be the recommendation goes to the committee before it goes to the council.
Right.
Yes.
As opposed to,
Yeah.
here are 20 resumes and people and we're all gonna do it as a team.
Correct.
Okay,
But
That-
I do think the committee should see the resumes. You can have your recommendations.
well,
The committee sees
yeah, so to be
to
clear,
get a.
we've
better
never
list.
ever asked for a resume from anybody.
Okay. So
And I'm really not in favor of that, because I think you can have really good citizens on boards that may not have a resume that supports that directly.
So remember, she said resume or whatever the committee
Yeah.
decides. So I think it is. This resume is just like a word we're using. It
Okay.
is just, yeah. I
Okay.
don't think it's, yeah,
Okay.
that serious.
Totally
Yeah.
understand. So he
Or
makes
that
the
formal.
nominations, and then
To the committee first.
to the committee,
Yes.
and then two of you say no and he says, or she in the future says yes, then what happens then?
Well,
It's up to him.
it will function just like any of our other committees. It can come to the council as a divided whatever, or it can come to the council as a unanimous decision.
So the committee, well, so the way everything works now is a committee makes a recommendation.
Correct.
So it would come to council as a committee recommendation.
That's correct.
Not
Okay.
a mayor recommendation.
But it may or may not match the mayor's recommendation to the committee. Is that right?
That's correct. But all three are making that
And it would be vetted out in that setting instead of in this setting.
correct. So
So if there was more than one, or if there was one position, and are you looking for one nominee from the mayor to
Well-
the committee for the one position, or are you going to bring forth several?
I'm
and then
assuming
one?
that he would bring all of his ideas to the committee at that point in time. And from that point, you sit down and you discuss everything.
I would assume the implementation would be whenever there's a spot that needs to be filled, there would be a meeting called. That would how, if I'm the chair of the committee, that's how I would expect I would do it. So, and rather than what I normally do now, which is I pull up my laptop at probably 11 o'clock at night and start going through all the submissions, and I start reading through what everybody's put on there, and I go try to figure out who's who, and then I set up coffees and I have one-on-ones with people, and I kind of figure out, what are your interests? Do you have a hidden agenda? I mean, I really want to know this. You know what I mean?
Tell you.
Yeah, well,
The hidden agenda's hidden.
I don't ask them directly, but I might ask them what's their favorite kind of coffee, and I figure it out. I mean, it's not doable. It's doable if it's surfaceable. It's not the way I would do it. If you asked me my opinion, I would keep it the way it is. But I understand where you're coming from, so I'm not trying to knock on this. I do know that there were two people that were disappointed that I didn't nominate them for this. And I won't go into that part, but I had reasons. And the reasons were, in my mind, noble ones for the best of Apex. Not ideological in the sense that partisanship comes into it at all, but more along the lines of what's the focus? Is the focus Apex? And if it's anything other than that, then I get nervous, right? Because I want somebody that's Apex focused, long term, right?
And you're always willing to, it's a rhetorical question, but you're always willing to meet with us and talk about your
Absolutely.
recommendations, I mean, one-on-one if we have
Sure.
questions or
Yeah,
concerns.
right. Now, an alternative, and I know I've got a motion on the floor in a second, okay, but an alternative could also be where these are presented to council for more than 4 calendar days before a council meeting, right? When it shows up on the agenda, you've got a weekend to look at it.
And it's kind of late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, I can, like I said, I sat in that chair, so I know what it feels like to go, I don't really know this person. But if the mayor, I always kind of said, but if the mayor, took the time to figure it out, does anybody else know him? Some other people might. I just kind of went along with it. That's the reality, But I understand. Well, anyway, I've said enough. Let me see what else. Councilman Jensen, you had the floor last, I think.
I think I'm done on
Okay.
discussion. But to reiterate the one thing, I'm not done, I guess. I'm not, I think that a committee to evaluate and to assist the mayor is a good idea. I still think that the mayor does make the decision, not the committee. Because the council makes the final decision at the mayor's recommendation. So I think it still goes back to the mayor. But I can see the committee helping the mayor, assisting the mayor with vetting the situation, kind of off to the side, because we don't want to sit up here and vet a bunch of people.
Yeah, and consent agenda is too late.
Well,
Right.
Right. Okay. Well, we've got a motion and a second to direct staff for these changes as was read into the record.
but we will vote on it one more time.
Sorry?
We're going to direct staff
Well, we haven't voted yet.
And I know,
Yes.
no. We're
Oh,
going to vote on this thing
They'll-
tonight.
If we approve,
We approve that staff takes a look at this.
That's
and
right.
puts something together, then we will approve,
they'll write something.
because I want to see fully what it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
right,
All right.
right. You will get to read it before you have to vote on it.
Wow.
Yes. So the question, the question at this point is, do we direct staff to go draft up some language that we can all read as a council that amends the ordinances for how boards are filled, board seats are filled?
Correct, that's,
All right, if there's no other discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
All right, so that passes 3-2. So staff, you've got the wording. I think Councilmember Killingsworth can provide you.
I'll pass it on.
All right, very good. And that then, I think that concludes that item. Councilmember, okay.
Yes.
All right, and so at this time, we now have closed session. This is a possible motion here to go into closed session to consult with the attorney. And we also want to consult on a matter to direct staff for a negotiating position related to property acquisition. Can I have a motion to go into closed session for those items? All right, we've got several motions. No discussion?
Second.
All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. All right, we're going into closed session. And the public are advised that we have no other items to discuss on open agenda. Thank you very much for sticking it out, folks.
Chief McGee?